I'm sure I get into the right code here and not any of my other codes.
Okay.
Just to let you know, we are live streaming. Oh, that's it. I'm getting better and better. Hi, Bill.
Hey, Carrie, how you doing? Morning? Oh, morning, yeah, right. Good afternoon.
It's morning somewhere, Bill.
Evening.
Oh, God.
Tommy Danza. Okay.
That's right.
That's East Shore Drive. On the other side of it, it's farm.
Yeah,
Okay. Some of them get back
right.
from the road.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, 7:29.
Have a seat, please.
Thank you.
You have your script ready?
Hmm?
Or when you look out of the
You just call meetings to order and then we'll do the motion.
Who do you want to call the meeting?
Yep.
7:30.
Okay. So, I am calling the planning board meeting of November 12th, 2004, calling to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So,
Okay,
Secretary Coley.
So we'd like to make a motion.
Oh, okay.
The chairman is absent this evening, so we will be electing, Member Olson as, the member with the most seniority as our chair this evening, as per the rules of our meeting procedure. If I can have that motion, please.
So moved.
So moved. Second?
Second.
Okay.
Oh, is there a vote?
All in
All in
favor?
favor?
Aye.
I guess-
Thank you.
Okay, could the secretary please call the roll?
Vanessa Holland,
Present?
Jesse Gallo is absent, Scott Brown,
I'm here.
Carrie Boland,
Here.
Bill Olson,
I'm here.
and Brian Barber,
Present.
Keith Woodruff,
Here.
Liz Cassidy.
Here.
Thank you.
I'd like to accept a motion to accept the minutes from the October 8th, 2004 meeting. Okay.
I'll make the motion to accept those meetings, yes.
Okay.
Second.
Meeting, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Can the alternate vote when we have a quorum?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
The alternate has reviewed the minutes and believe they're consistent with, yes.
It's okay, it's a good
I
question.
just wanted to everything is.
Okay, so the first order of business then is reviewing applications. The first application for us to review is the, get this right,
Poplar. 19 Poplar Street.
19 Poplar Street.
Before we open the public hearing, can I confirm the notices we received proof of mailing and this completion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Here, you want a chair?
Thank you, but you see these stuff.
So this is a public hearing, but before we have the public hearing, would the applicants like to make any comments?
I don't think so. I think we, shared everything at the last meeting about our intention and our hope for a small addition on our house. So,
Yeah. Do you have any comments from our engineers before the public hearing?
Nothing new has been submitted for this application, so it's just a carryover of the same comments from the last meeting.
Okay. All right, so I will open this application for a public hearing. Anybody in the audience like,
I'll move that
Make
we
a
open
motion,
the
okay.
public hearing.
I'll second.
sorry about that? All in favor?
Aye.
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 And then if, Kristen can just read the notice into the record.
That's right. Please take notice that the Village Planning Board of the Village of Warwick will hold a public hearing at the Village Hall, 1777 Main Street, Warwick, New York, on November 12th, 2004, at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as possible on the site application of Randy and Robert Barlow to allow for the construction of a rear addition and porch to the existing single-family house located in 19 Poplar Street. A copy of the application is available for review at the Planning Board office at 77 Main Street, Warwick, New York, during regular business hours by order of the Planning Board. Okay. So, anybody from the public have any comments on this application?
I move we close the public hearing.
You received any written correspondence or anything about it?
no.
Good. We have a motion on the floor to close the public hearing. Anyone want to second it?
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is closed. So, what's the next steps here?
So at this point, given the nature of the project, this is a type 2 action and we're seeker, so we don't need to undergo any further environmental review. I did have a technical comment that the application and site plan to be updated to reflect use group B. And then I noted that, and that's what appears to be a typo. The application does appear to conform to the corrected setbacks. I would also note Keith's memo. So if it's the board's pleasure, we are in a position to take action tonight. I have not prepared a resolution, but will do so subject and incorporate the discussion into that written resolution for the chair's signature.
Keith, you got any comments?
It's the same carryover, the same four comments from the last meeting.
I can address them if you'd like.
I believe the property owners addressed the first two in regards to the water and sewers, that it's not going to be impacted with the addition. The existing porch along the front of the dwelling just needs to be added into the setbacks and then a dimension provided. And then the last one was just the bulk requirements to be updated to reflect that setback to the porch. So nothing earth-shattering, and that's also why the board was able to carry through with the public hearings from the last meeting.
For information purposes, the distance of the porch is 6.6 feet, which will be reflected. I've reflected it already, but will be reflected on the plan. And the bulk table will be modified as well to reflect that 6.6 feet, and use group will be changed. Those, I believe, are the three technical comments that needed to be addressed.
Anybody on the board have any additional comments, questions?
I think this seems very straightforward, and I'd be totally in favor of moving ahead with a.
I would just recommend my customary conditions, which are obviously addressing my memo, Keith's memo, but as well as payment of all
Well,
fees
right.
and the customary that you see on the resolution. So I'm happy to prepare that resolution if the board would like to make a motion.
particularly given no public comment at all.
Do I have a motion from the board to accept this?
I'll make a motion as Ms. Cassidy's already stipulated. For so.
Accept it with the conditions so noted at between the attorney and engineer.
Yep, and this way they can prepare for
Excuse me?
they can prepare for the chair's signature in their
Yeah,
absence,
yep.
I believe.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you.
May I just ask, in layman's terms, about how long would you say before because our builder said given the warmth of the temperature this year, that they probably could get going once the building permits were issued before the winter sets in. So I was just wondering if there's any sense about timing of this.
So typically, it takes me a couple of days and I do have a night meeting tomorrow that I have to prepare for. So it usually takes me a couple of days to get the resolution to Mr. Gallo for signature. And I'm assuming this can happen simultaneously because it sounds like John's already handled 99.999%. He's gonna submit the revised plans. Mr. Woodruff and I are gonna say, yep, the revised plans match our comments, and then the chair can sign the plans. And then once the chair signs the plans, that theoretically, is he away?
So figure a week and a half,
We can have, okay,
up around about,
great.
but no promises.
I'm gonna work on it rather quickly, but no, it'll sit, and I don't want it to sit.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, thank you so much, everybody.
He can sign it too.
What you saying?
Yeah, he can sign it too if he's away.
Yeah. The next application is 22 Wheeler Avenue. 24 Wheeler Avenue. John Peruzzo and Don Peruzzo.
Did you get a copy of this?
Yes.
Looks like you have it.
All right. So, Liz, do you have any comments?
I
think you
do.
do?
The property is located in the limited office overlay. Applicant to verify the distance to Route 94 and 17A to determine whether GML 239 applies. Counting the tax lots, it looked like it was gonna be close, so we have to confirm. Accessory apartments are a conditional use and subject to site plan review. Accessory apartments fall under use group B. The application is subject to a public hearing. The planning board shall require the applicant to mail notice by certified mail of said hearing to the at least 10 days before, and that's a typo, it's not to the applicant, it's to the all property owners within 300 feet of the property line, and shall give notice in the public paper at least 5 days before. I do note Keith Woodruff's comments dated November 5th. Application comments, title appears in 2 names, both record owners to sign application and or proxy. Recommend applicant provide a written narrative describing the project and scope of constructions. Plans do not identify how large the proposed accessory apartment will be, other than to say it will fall within the relevant range. I'm not gonna read all of what's in my memo, but accessory apartments are governed by 145-120.4. And I copied in my memo some of the key provisions. Seeker, the applicant has provided a short form environmental assessment form dated September 10th, 2024. The proposed action appears to be an unlisted action. Applicant to address the yes answer to question 12B. Applicant to address the yes answer to question 20. And applicant to address the impacts of screening shown on the plan. The current site is a pre-existing non-conforming site with respect to virtually all required setback dimensions. The applicant should be referred to the Zoning Board of Appeals pursuant to 145-131E. Although that same section provides for a reduction in yards for lots less than 100 feet wide, the lot in question fails to even meet those reduced standards. The property card identifies the existing house as having 2,113 square feet with 1,183 square feet on the first story, and then 930 of square feet as a finished basement. That's at least how the tax records have it. According to your code, For accessory apartments, the primary residence shall not be reduced below 1,000 square feet, exclusive of basements. So even if the minimum apartment of 400 square feet, the math doesn't work, okay? And so applicant has to demonstrate compliance with that provision. The proposed parking is located in the front yard in violation of 120.4E. And that is it for now.
I'm sorry, could you explain that part again about the square footage and the math not working?
So, your code requires a minimum, if you have an accessory apartment, it requires a minimum accessory apartment of 400 square feet. The maximum accessory apartment you can have is 800 square feet. Your code has language in it that if you reduce the square footage of the primary unit, the primary residence, you have to have at least 1,000 square feet of primary residence on the first floor exclusive of the basements.
And how much?
Almost half of this home square footage is classified as basement, at least by the tax records.
Okay.
So the applicant, either by getting a determination from the building inspector that that's not, Keith and I did discuss it, you know, it appears to be a walkout, it's a house where the garage is on the first floor and then you have to go up. So is that classified as a basement? You know, that's an interpretation for your building inspector. But that is based on what's currently before the tax records, the math doesn't math.
Okay.
And how small would the primary first
Well,
floor?
if it goes from 1,183 minus 400, it's 700 and change.
700, right, which is less than
So-
800.
So the top
Less than
floor
1,000,
is
it would have to be
700.
1,000.
Okay.
So the house isn't big enough to accommodate, at least how I see it publicly classified, it's not big enough to accommodate that apartment without expanding the building.
Does the applicant have a way to address that?
Yeah.
Or is it?
Yeah.
Is that something?
So there is no basement, it's on a slab, it's a bi-level, front to back instead of left to right. There is no basement.
So that would be,
You would have to request an interpretation from the building inspector, because right now the assessor is classifying that as a basement.
And then half of the,
And it's being taxed as a basement. So,
There's a chimney, but where is the heating system
heating system is on the first floor.
on the first floor?
Yeah. So the way, in terms of the square footage, the way the house is laid out, half of it on the first floor is still a part of the main unit, the way the floor plan works out. You go in, there's a stairway up, stairway down. The first half is still all part of the original, where the laundry room, mechanical room, and entry to the garage is, as well as mudroom, closet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that because the house is perhaps in a floodplain that they classified that as a basement and non-livable space, or?
That I don't know.
Because I know there's streams there, but that was just something I figured I'd ask.
From what I was told, to move there just shy of 2 years ago, it was built, the house to the left and the right were built previously, and they learned because their basements flood rather poorly. Same guy built all three of them, so when they got to ours, they did it on a slab.
When was this house built?
1960,
Tax
1969, I
records,
believe.
yeah, listed as 1969.
59?
69.
69. Well, it's relatively new.
the simple assumption is that it was classified that way on the tax records to reduce taxes.
it could be any number of things, it could also be an error, but that's not this board's determination to make. That would be a interpretation by the building inspector, and then the assessor would have to, but I have to go based on the public records. In theory, the tax records should speak to the building permit, so if they don't, then there's some clarification there. That
And as a backup to that remedy, is this something that can be granted a variance by the ZBA?
he can apply for it, they would have their statutory standards.
Yeah.
This house does require pretty much a variance in every direction.
So that seems like a lot to deal with, to go forward with the process of scheduling a public hearing.
Oh,
No.
we'd have to send him to the ZBA first.
Yeah.
And again, that would be a decision there for that particular board.
Yeah.
How far from municipal parking does it need to be? Because these two lots that you indicated are not in compliance. 3 lots are, 3 parking lots. the municipal parking lot on Spring Street.
I understood as the two were, but the third
No, I
proposed
think
one wasn't.
none of them are, because they're all in the front of the house.
Yeah, but there's a garage door in the front of the house.
Yeah, the one is in the driveway, so that would,
Okay.
that
Okay.
doesn't, that
That
doesn't
does-
count, cause it's the
Mhm.
driveway.
Okay,
Um,
and these two.
Are you sending him to the ZBA? Because should we just make a motion to send him to the ZBA?
well, I think with respect to the parking, they're asking if the parking requires a variance as well. Now, at this point, the easy answer is to, while you're going to the ZBA, ask for an interpretation as to the parking.
Right, mhm.
Because then the ZBA can say, yes, you either need 3 and you need a variance, so one of two situations, you either need all 3 and you need a variance because you're in the front yard,
Right.
or you need an area variance, that's option 1. Option 2 is they say, no, you don't, we're interpreting the code that you're close enough to municipal parking that you don't need 3 spots. So I would do it as an alternative application, if that makes sense.
So,
And that way you're asking both questions simultaneously. And-
application for the parking spot, application for the apartment.
So, yeah, you would need an area variance on, Keith, correct me if I'm wrong, pretty much every dimension.
I believe so, including one that's missing from the bulk table, being the FAR value, the floor to area ratio. That is missing from the bulk. And based on the numbers that were provided in the tax records, it may be an exceedance of the zoning for that as well. And then also the development coverage, it looks like it's gonna be an increase. Whereas you currently listed as about 33%, I'm calculating it to be about 35, which is right at the cusp of the maximum permittable. So it's almost pretty much, I think the rear yard is the only one that's not an exceedance, and that and maybe the livable floor area, but everything else I think is it a pre-existing nonconformity, which typically you don't refer to the ZBA just because he's not increasing the nonconformity, but there is the 1 or 2 values on the development coverage and the FAR value that would be something, as well as the parking in the front yard. But all would be area variances and not use variances.
And the fact that it is in a floodway, is this floodway?
No, floodplain,
Floodplain, okay.
yes,
So, but it's a pre-existing,
yes.
so we should not do anything on that.
I mean, really, the only thing that he's proposing is that third parking space. Everything else is pre-existing, so by the virtue of adding an impervious surface for that third parking space, he's increasing the development coverage. But other
Correct.
than that, everything else is remaining the same. It's just that because the minimum lot size is 20,000 square feet, and they've got almost 6,000.
Right.
So it's less than half, significantly. So based on that, and also the other bulk requirements that it's pre-existing, it wouldn't be a bad idea to send them to the ZBA just to obtain the variances for all the pre-existing nonconformities.
Yeah, it's true.
And
Anybody know the name of the street? Does it have a name?
I don't know if it's named. or
Besides
not.
Spring Street, it goes on to Spring Street.
The stream is more of a culvert, really.
No, it goes down to underneath Spring Street and goes into the way under eventually.
It may just be called a tributary or unnamed
Yeah.
tributary.
Goes into a little pond over here.
We obviously can't say anything about how the ZBA makes their decisions, but if the construction, you said the construction of the neighboring lots were by the same developer,
So I understood
These two,
from
right?
neighbors.
but information about whether those neighboring lots are substantially similar in terms of the character, the coverage, and the, lot sizes and so on may impact their opinion about whether or not the variances are, and particularly the driveway. It seems to me that
There's
impervious surface also
Right.
Versus permeable surface for that parking area may make a difference in the opinion of whether or not that's acceptable.
There are, it's very consistent with the character of all the other properties on the road, directly across the street, 2 houses over, 2 houses this way. If that has any merit.
You indicated that one of these lots, parking lots are basically a driveway into a garage?
Correct.
Where's the garage?
The middle one of the three. So
This
that
one?
one
Yeah,
goes
that's the
directly
gar-
into the garage.
And is this the garage is inside the house?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Which would indicate that the math, like as was outlined, that there's probably an error in
Yeah.
what's recorded on the records because
There's the photo.
That's,
if you measure the exterior of the home, there can't be 900 square feet of finished space. It just doesn't. To her point, the math doesn't math. So something needs to be checked.
in effect, the garage is in the basement, right?
Correct. It's the first floor.
Is that a basement?
First floor or basement?
It's just, that's the whole thing, because it's built on a slab,
I
so.
understand.
It's basically bi-levels typically go left to right, just due to the shape of the plot of land. This one goes front to back.
It doesn't look like that anymore. That's what the previous house looked like.
It's had an exterior renovation.
Yes.
Do you want to have photographs? Do you want them?
Yes.
Cool. I
So
know,
if the-
I
if
know
the
I've walked
building-
past this thing many times, but I can't.
If the building
Doesn't look
inspector,
like that anymore.
if the building inspector
Oh, okay.
agrees that that's a first floor and not a basement, and the tax records are changed accordingly,
I would wanna see, so right now the application says we're gonna get a 400 to 800 square foot accessory apartment. He should show the math showing that this is the total square footage of the building. This is the accessory unit, whatever it is, whether it's 400, 500, whatever it may be, so that you can see this is the accessory, just because your code calls that out.
but our engineer is still recommending that the you see the ZBA and obtain the variances across the board.
Makes sense.
He has to go anyway in order to get the parking space in the front yard.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're gonna go, you might as well ask
Yeah.
for forgiveness on everything else.
Yeah.
That or an interpretation, a simultaneous interpretation that this is not expanding on and they don't need it, so you can ask for either. If I need it, I'm asking for it, if I don't need it, I'm asking for an interpretation that I don't need it, and then this board can act accordingly.
Yeah. So, given that we're trying to be conscious of the efficiency of this process, what's the most expeditious way forward for the applicant?
At this point, refer
to-
him to the,
ZBA.
zoning board of appeals.
ZBA. So you go to the ZBA, and the next step would be to come back to us.
Mhm.
They will need a public hearing after that,
They're
correctly?
gonna need a public hearing for both.
For both.
Unfortunately, well, this is a conditional use, so it does require a public hearing.
Hearing.
So I think at this point, all we can do is make a motion,
To-
to refer them to the ZBA. Again, I'm recommending on those couple of issues, so, for the area variances, either ask, and this is a combination, ask for the variance itself, or alternatively, an interpretation that this is a pre-existing nonconformity that you're not enlarging. Same thing with the parking, and either interpretation that the municipal parking is sufficient under our code.
What was that last one? I'm sorry.
What, municipal parking?
Yeah, so it's area variances,
Or in the.
pre-existing non-conformity.
So that's an interpretation.
Yep.
And then same thing with the parking, and either an interpretation that municipal parking is sufficient, or a variance for the third stall, that new stall.
Okay, and those have to be 3 separate applications?
Well, you can put it all in,
One.
I can't give you legal advice as to how to bring the application, but typically they're all one application, one big application with a bunch of lists.
Okay.
Would anybody like to make that motion?
Before you do it, go through my comments real quick.
Good.
So we talked about the whole zoning stuff. Request that you provide a copy of the survey that's referenced in the map. Because the board has a copy of the survey. leave that to Kristen. Is the existing garage going to maintain?
Yes.
So the garage itself can be considered one parking space. So you can use the garage plus the space in the driveway as your two spaces for the residents, and then your
good point.
existing stall could be the third space. So you don't have to create the new third space off to the side.
That'd be preferred.
And that's why I wanted to kind of get my comments in. So as long as the garage is going to maintain, then you can keep all three spaces, because if you do that proposed third space, not only are you not allowed to have parking in the front yard, but then you also have a requirement to have screening to your neighbor, and it's not really leaving the most space to do that, as well as leaving adequate room to put in that curb cut to come in off the Wheeler. So I think if you count the garage plus the two existing spaces, I think you'll comply with the three. I still think it's a good idea to go to ZBA for the variances, because I think the development coverage is still going to either be at or exceed, so you might as well go and get the interpretations. And then the other stuff is really just making sure that the notes in regards to the accessory apartment are added to the plans, just because there's certain stipulations and criteria that the zoning code has, just to have that on the plan would be well benefit.
So I have a question on the accessory apartment use, and this may completely, I realize that this may need an entirely new submission. So if I'm not going to live there, right, so I just moved back from, born in Warwick, lived away for 10 years, just moved back. I'm sure at some point my wife will want me to move into a larger home, and the way this reads is if I decide to move, it reverts back to single family. Would I need a new application to make it a two-family?
I'd have to, well, you could amend this application,
Okay.
amending the use, and we can continue to process that. So you do wanna consider the ownership requirements, because, and not ownership, the residency requirements set forth in the code, because it will revert, there is a reverter, so you would lose. So I can't speak, I have not looked at whether, a two-family solves that issue. And I have not looked at any of the bulk table. So if you want us to look at that, we can we would need a submission to do that.
Okay.
And, I don't know if you wanna go to the ZBA first, or if you wanna make that submission, to us first, and have us take a look at it, but I don't wanna speak off the top of my head about a two-family, cause I haven't taken a look at it.
Yeah, I'd rather do it all correct now, not knowing what the future holds. So, if I went to the zone, is there a possibility if I went to the zoning board first that there would be different things I would need to look for, or would relatively stand to those same three items? Potentially.
Well, the ZBA is gonna be focused on, they have a statutory, criteria for granting the area variances, so that's what they're going to be, looking at. If their decision hinges on something, they may ask you for that as well.
Got it.
But, if you're changing the use on them, that may alter their thought process, so,
Okay.
because it's a different use classification,
Okay.
two-family versus accessory.
Is there access from the garage, internal access to the first floor?
Yes.
There is, okay. Here, there's the steps coming in inside.
So the apartment would be behind the garage, like in the back of the ground floor then?
If it helps, I made a not to scale mock-up.
Okay,
Sure.
it would help.
So it's the front of the home is here, right? So this is the pre-existing back door. There's a pre-existing pathway that comes around. So it's got no structural, like this is the existing layout as it's been. So this is the garage here.
Ah, okay.
This is the end of a hallway where there's a door.
That's
And
the
then this is
outside
the
door.
laundry, the biggest laundry utility room I've ever seen. And then a hallway, and then the steps up and down. So the entire first floor, and then it comes down, like the steps up, step down. Big utility room, laundry room, hallway, garage, and then this was the hallway to the back half of the house.
How do you get from the garage, you have to go outside again?
No, there's a door right here.
Oh, it's a
I
door?
only drew what would be
Okay,
on.
that's a door, and there's steps in here?
Nope,
in
this
the
is
back.
ground level, walk out.
Yeah, and in here, there's
There's a door here.
a door here, so this is ground, you still have to come up here, no?
Nope,
No?
this is all, so you walk in the front door, steps up, step down,
Uh-huh.
like a bi-level.
Yeah.
And at the bottom of the steps is right here a landing
Okay,
and like big hallway.
uh-huh,
There's technically a wall here. I just only drew the walls for the apartment.
okay,
So there's a doorway here into this large room, washer, dryer, mechanicals.
Ah.
And then there's a door here that leads into the garage.
oh, okay.
So structurally, it's not a problem to do two-family, to separate the two.
That's basically where the idea came from, was
Yeah,
everything was already existing.
yeah.
Now, how would you divide
That's
this up now with inside when if it's two-family? Where would it be?
The first floor,
Third, yeah,
the steps, main front
Yeah.
door, and then they would have access to the laundry room,
uh-huh,
the hallway, and the garage.
uh-huh,
And then, which works out to about 1,300 plus or minus square feet. And then this would be living room, kitchen, hallway that they could use like a closet, full bath and full bedroom.
So I'm just looking quickly at two-family.
Mhm.
Two-family puts you in use group G, and almost every dimension in use group G is bigger.
It also looks like it's a special use,
Mm,
because it's not, that's a two-family detached.
no,
Well, because otherwise it goes to multiple residences.
becomes a
That's
special
a
use.
question for the building inspector to issue a determination.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way that the code reads is that it's a one family with an accessory apartment, or two-family detached, and once you go to a two-family in a single building, then it's a
Multiple residents.
multiple residence, which is a
And
special
per-
use.
Before the village
Then
board.
he's go to the village board.
Right.
And
Gets more complicated.
ZBA, so you'd have all
And
three
ZBA.
boards. If that's the case, that would be an interpretation for the building inspector.
So special use with village board.
Is there a real
Yep.
positive for
The
doing the
building
two-family
inspector has
multifamily,
to-
or just-
Make that determination.
Exactly.
But if he does, the village board is the board which issues special use permits.
So I think you need to figure, I think that's the biggest issue.
Yeah.
Just looking at spatially, because the only thing about if we go to multiple residents, which is use group G, now you are increasing the nonconformity versus status, you're changing the use to
Mhm.
different use groups, so
Mm-hmm.
the numbers are changing and you're making that difference bigger.
In regard to the applicant, is there really any positives for him going for the multifamily over the ADU?
Residency requirement.
And he could sell it. He could sell it as a two-family instead of now, if he goes to sell it, he loses the accessory apartment.
But either way, I need to get the variance.
You
I
need,
think so,
you
yes.
need,
So-
you have a trip in your future to the ZBA, sorry.
Trip to the ZBA.
Either way.
No, I get it.
And you just have to submit your plans. Boris will look at them and then he'll determine, he sends you to the village board, that's the process.
Right.
Got
That's
it.
what I'm
Right.
trying to say.
Yeah.
That's what happens with the building inspector, he'll say,
Mhm.
oh, I see, and then he'll say you have to go to the village board. But
Right.
you already know that this board will be sending you to the zoning board.
Yeah.
Can he pursue both simultaneously, the conditional use and the eventuality of making it a
Special use.
special use?
So, right now, he's proposing accessory use, which I just wanna be, is a conditional use before this board.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And, the other is theoretically, subject to the building inspector's interpretation, of multiple residents subject to a special use
Special.
before
Mm-hmm.
the village board. I can't advise the applicant whether he wants to pursue both simultaneously, that's up to him. They do involve very different procedures, and it might be confusing before the ZBA, because they'll have two different applications. Once it comes back from the ZBA, our processing is gonna be relatively similar.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, does he wanna go through the time and expense of the special use permit before the village board?
Mm-hmm.
Got it, thank you.
So at this point, then I think we'll look for a send him to the ZBA. Application to send him to the ZBA, a motion to send the applicant to the ZBA.
I make a motion to send the applicant to the ZBA for area variances or clarifications on the current variances and area
And I'll
situation.
type all this up.
In your language, that'd be great, thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any comments on that? If not, I'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nope.
Thank you.
Okay.
My first time.
Next application is 19 Welling Place, Borsalino.
Yeah, tape, that's important.
Thanks.
Yeah. I know I have that one somewhere here. Before, excuse me? I'm not quite sure.
It's a historic, I do, I read it.
Yes.
Well, can we get a brief
You
overview
got
from the
approval. I'm
applicant with a
with
quick full start?
Yes. I am Chris Collins. I'm with Base 10 Architecture. We are an architecture firm located in Warwick, New York. I am working with Patty and Charlie Basalina on the property of 19 Welling. They purchased the property from Charlie's brother-in-law, right? Sorry. And they would like to renovate it for the first floor to be 2 offices and the second floor to be 3 apartments. We were before the architectural, thank you, last week and then the prior month, and we did receive approval for the design, which I believe you've all seen in the submittals that were sent.
And I'm just going to put on record, and I don't believe it's basis for recusal. Chris is my personal architect for my own home, and if Mr. Bill is your brother-in-law, he is my next door neighbor. So it's called small town. Small town
Yeah,
USA.
small town is,
It's in dire need of a repair. I've been looking at it for 40 years when he bought it, I remember it.
okay. So, any comments you people like to make about the application?
I think everybody's seen it and looked it over, correct? And I know Keith and Elizabeth each had comments that we have now seen.
We tried to make it the best we could make it look in that street. We tried hard on it. So, but at some point, there has to be a money line on it too, so whether it's worth it or not. So, that's where we're at right now.
I think the renderings are lovely and the
Yeah.
sentiment
I've been
you
looking at it for
The
38
sentiment
years
you've
and I
ex-
get sick every time I go in there. I've done a lot of
Charlie owns a construction company that was doing work as well, so when Charlie says he's done a lot of nice things, gonna do this on his project.
I was wondering if you can tell us more about the apartments and, like sizes and, the parking.
I understand that.
Each, do you want me to address that?
Anybody who'd like to tell us about it.
Each of the apartments are approximately about 800 square feet. There are 2 bedrooms. The parking, there is no available spot for parking on this site.
Okay.
There is a easement there. Seems to be controlled by the telephone company, so it's not even, there's no space for parking.
What's behind the building? I
There
feel
is
like I walked.
parking
There's
behind the
parking back
building,
here, right?
that's the phone company.
That's on
Oh,
the
that's
phone
on-
company.
It doesn't say that.
It is.
I don't see that on the deed, but
Okay.
that's what everybody's telling
Over
me.
here, and some of it's owned by the Newhart family, the parking lot.
No, that's
That's
the
over
next
here.
lot over. This
This
parking
one here.
here is part of the
Phone
telephone
company,
company.
right. Oh, you see phone company trucks there.
Well, it's owned by the entity that owns the property for the phone company. I don't know if it's
There's a
exactly
slither of
the
grass
same.
there, there's a fence
Right.
between that and the phone company, but the easement actually goes further than the fence. So off the side of this 19 Welling, the property line is not as deep as it looks to that fence. 5 feet, I think it is.
And are you envisioning parking as like rentals or short-term, like?
No, full rentals,
Full
I don't
rentals.
do short term anything. No, I see all that stuff you guys are going through. I don't want nothing to do with that.
Thanks.
One apartment, two,
Three.
three.
There's one now and
There's
an
one now
office
there.
upstairs.
Oh,
So
look, there's-
existing now
there's
is
a
one big
floor plan.
apartment, 1 3-bedroom, and
These are the floor plans that were submitted to the
Okay, I
AHRB.
didn't see that, okay.
I assume they're the same, Chris?
It hasn't changed.
Okay.
no.
And so the access is the two doors on the left and the
There are
right,
two
when you see the
apartments.
front of the building.
Both
Yeah,
of
there
those
are
doors
two-
are there now.
Yeah, there
Oh,
goes,
okay.
right.
There's two
but there's
apartments
two now.
that share us there.
Right.
So there's a common hallway,
Uh-huh.
and then there's one apartment with a dedicated.
That's one on the left here.
Excellent, all right, thanks.
Nice.
All right.
So that's the first.
Liz, do you have any other comments? I'm sure you do.
I do. So this is a conditional, so it's a mixed use, so the second floor with the apartments is a conditional use, use group J. The business professional offices are permitted use.
Apartment.
It is subject to a public hearing, sorry guys. Keith did do a memo that I'll let Keith discuss. This appears to be a type 2 action, because they're not expanding the, it's less than 4,000 square feet. The one thing, and I didn't really see it too terribly, the bulk table on the proposed plan indicates an increase of the floor area ratio in excess of the maximum permitted by code. Applicant to address and if necessary seek a variance from the ZBA. The planning board, to evaluate parking, they're gonna be relying on on-street parking and municipal, parking. And then per your code, I should have had this out on the last applicant. Shared parking, should be examined in relation to the availability of such off-site, off-street parking existing within 300 feet of the site. And we do know that it's in close proximity to a couple of the other municipal lots.
The municipal lot on Elm Street, right? That's
Say it one more time, I didn't hear you.
the,
3 municipal lots.
the
Yeah.
existing on Elm Street, that lot over there?
Not Elm,
No.
no.
CVS.
The bottom,
CVS.
Wheeler and Spring, I'm sorry.
CVS upper and lower,
Right.
and then the one on,
It's
well,
right across the
From
street
G&T,
from
right
the
across the
last
street.
applicant.
there's 3 of them within 300 feet.
So the village, so according to Google, if we trust their distances, there was actually 3 lots that are, what's the term? Not shared, but public lots. One was down on Spring Street across from what is now Anna's.
Of course.
There's one on the intersection of Spring Street and Wheeler, basically across from the last
It's over
applicant.
there. Mhm.
And then the village lot, which is actually down on the other side of Main Street, down the bridge.
What's the distance to that?
It was within the 300
Is
when I did a
They're all
straight
within the
shot.
300, and we also rent the 3 lots
We have 3
Where the
spots in the
bank
lot that
is.
we purchased
that we can incorporate
through
into
the
rentals.
village.
Oh, wow.
So we bought those.
We
so-
rent those from the village.
Yeah.
Where are they?
On,
Chase Bank,
by the
Chase
Chase
Bank.
Oh, okay, in the
That
back,
lot
okay.
there, they have bus.
the village rents.
Right,
I-
right.
We
So you have
rent
a
those.
permitted, a
Yes,
designated
permitted
space.
3 of them.
You purchased three of them, okay.
Yes.
Awesome.
That's within 300 feet?
No,
No.
but we
No,
rent
but we
them.
have
They
them,
have them.
so in case we ran into some issues, we have them available to
Wow.
us. They're rented, we pay for them, we have the permits.
Elizabeth, did you finish? Sorry.
And then it's in the historic district, so they've already gone to, I'll issue it.
AHDRB.
Say that
I
10
cannot
times
get that
fast.
right
Well, I say it now after being there enough times.
Just
I've typed it out.
ARB.
No,
And
ARB.
even though it's a,
I know.
Or the AHDRB.
It's the Dr. B.
Oh, good one.
Oh, that is a good way to remember it.
That's pretty good, I'm gonna try to remember that.
I do recommend referral to, SHPO, but we can do that early on while we're awaiting the public hearing.
We
so.
already initiated that.
See,
Yeah,
We
Good.
have a project number.
see, ask and I shall receive.
Just to address the floor area ratio, we are not increasing the footprint of this building. Right now, the building touches the ground. The roof in the back goes up 1 story. It slopes up to the 2-story portion. So, as Charlie mentioned before, in order for this project to be financially feasible, you need to get 3 2-bedroom apartments out of it, as well as the office space below to make it worth it. So the idea is just to basically go straight up, which really will clean up the exterior considerably because the roof and the intersections and a couple other building elements there really are not attractive at the moment.
And I lose the owner occupied store downstairs, because I'm not gonna pay myself.
Yeah. So the intent right now is for Charlie's company to have the office below. So
Okay.
he would be owner occupied. If, in the case where we didn't get the apartments, then he would need that money, that income.
wait, owner occupied, but it's a business, it's not a,
He's saying he's the business, he's not gonna pay himself rent, he's
I
gonna
understand.
be
Right.
occupying the
Okay.
unit.
I thought there were 2 businesses on the
There
building. What's the other one, or that's, oh,
Phase 10 architecture.
wonderful.
We would never go through this crazy stuff.
Keith, yep.
Sure. I had a couple comments in regards to the short EAF. Liz has said that it's a type 2 action, so those kind of fall by the wayside. The SHPO, Chris alluded to the fact that they've already submitted. The FAR, so in the bulk table, you do show that the existing is a 1.14 and that you're increasing it. So if you're not going to change it or increase the nonconformity, then I would just change the existing to match. Or you're saying that you are, in fact.
He's bumping out the second floor,
Pumping it up.
that's what he's,
But if so it's also increasing the, I mean, even though it's not, it's still floor area, so you're not necessarily changing the total gross floor area, or you are by increasing it to, because I mean, the way that it's defined is just floor area, they don't say height or if it's habitable or.
Oh, that's true.
That's a good point.
There is an attic space there, so it's, I mean, certain definitions don't exist in the village code, as I've learned.
Because if you do show you're increasing the nonconformity, then they're gonna have to refer you to the ZBA due to that fact. So if you find a way to
Okay.
correct the existing FAR value to match the proposed, then you're not exceeding.
Okay.
Didn't we have a previous issue with a similar type applicant on South Street where they bumped up the roof line but didn't change the footprint?
South Street.
I can't think of the name of it.
South Street.
The dome of the roof building. They bumped it up, add the second floor in there, but didn't change the actual
Are
footprint.
you talking Forrester?
Yeah, I think you're talking about
Forester.
Forester,
Yes,
right
yeah.
by the post
Forester.
office.
You're
that
talking
Yes.
one.
about
That's the Kennedy,
Forester.
the Kennedy
Forrester,
place, yeah, the
yes.
Kennedy, right.
Sorry.
Did he bump it up? I don't think he did.
He went up, yeah. He changed the
Did-
entire
Oh,
thing.
and,
Did it-
oh yeah, added
yeah,
a whole
yeah.
He
floor.
added a
You're
whole,
right, you're right,
didn't
added a
change
whole
the
floor.
footprint, but
Right,
added the entire
correct.
floor to it.
Yeah.
And he
Which
didn't
is similar,
Secondary.
because you're not
Right,
changing the
the
footprint, you're
footprint.
just changing your
You're
roof
right,
line
you're right.
to incorporate the, probably part of the second and the third apartment, or part of it, correctly?
It's
It's like you're
actually
dorming
Are
it.
you-
Like-
Yeah, you're just changing the dormer part,
Right.
which
That's
is
it.
similar to what they did on.
You're
So,
right,
Thursday.
you're right.
floor area
And do we
ratio is
refer
to-
them to the ZBA?
That's what I was trying to see,
I
if
don't-
we referred them or
I
not.
don't know if we did. Did we refer
Because I
that
didn't-
gentleman to the,
the floor area of all buildings
Project,
on a lot
I
divided by the
didn't
lot
do.
area.
I wasn't here.
that would be good to.
That's what I was trying to
No, I
figure out.
agree, like best practice, right? Like we just went through that.
Because it was about a year and a
We
half,
could
2
check the
years.
minutes.
What?
Is floor area
Doesn't
defined?
help us right this second.
Are you
but-
increasing the roof height?
So is attic space going forward?
What,
Correct.
No,
The
the
foot-
front of the building,
Yeah.
when you pull into the auto repair, it
Right.
goes deeper
Right.
on the bottom than it does on the
Yeah.
top. So there's a shed roof in the
I
back.
understand, right? So
Nice.
this new additions
just
are not
taking
gonna,
that back wall
not
and
gonna
going
increase
straight
the
up.
the top.
We're going straight up to the roof.
There also was, so floor area is not defined in the code, so, there also was an accessible attic space there. So, we're going,
That's true.
that's gonna be inaccessible attic space, because we don't want the tenants using that space, it'll be mechanical. So we're actually eliminating that as usable floor area.
That's true.
So that space is actually, then we're actually decreasing the amount, if you look at it that way, we're actually decreasing
It's existing, right?
floor area.
I think
That's,
I'm on
yeah, I
on
have the
this
picture of what
too,
they
like that
want to
makes
do.
sense.
There it is,
So-
you
Chris
see,
is
they're kind of
right,
just
though.
squaring off.
Right.
We're taking away the attic space now. It's a big attic space.
Looks like the same.
I didn't think of
Mm-hmm.
that.
But they need to change.
What floor area ratio is really designed is to help with massing.
But they don't take it.
Because, and that's why you'll see in some codes, your floor, limits on, if it's
So they don't.
the floor area ratios have to be what, so that you don't get these absolutely enormous houses on little teeny tiny lots.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's generally what it's there for. I suggested to Chris that he go to the building inspector to issue a determination, as to what's included in floor area. Floor area is not defined by our code. Is that the first and second floor? Is that the attic that's not being, that's not being developed? So that's a determination for Boris to issue, and then once he makes that determination, you guys can decide whether you need to either modify your plans to come into conformity or to go to the ZBA and build what you've proposed.
And actually, I went back and looked at it, it was 8 Forester in October of '23, they changed the zoning of it, but they did not have to go, we approved it because they didn't change the footprint. They just expanded.
It's the exact same
Yes.
thing they did on that
So-
building is what we're doing.
Which is,
That's the
well,
kind-
theirs was a
I know
little
the
different, they had to
building.
change the zoning because it
Zoning
was
because they
commercial.
didn't have
Right.
enough.
Correct,
Right.
but they
Right,
kept the
yes.
footprint and they were not.
I know
set
exactly.
at the time.
That was a flat roof
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
went
Yeah,
right up
right.
in the
Yeah.
back corner.
Right.
I apologize, it wasn't South, it was Forester. So
Sorry.
my apologies about the mixed.
Sadly, I
wording.
apologize.
No, I know that building.
Accepted.
That's the Kennedy property, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a second I thought South Street was another project we worked on. I don't wanna mention that, I don't wanna mention that was us too.
Well, no, because especially.
No,
what
we
you guys
didn't do
are
that
doing.
one, so.
Alright, the next one was just provide a calculation for the required number of parking spaces. I know there's none pre-existing, but just to show that what the automotive shop plus their accessory apartment now would have basically used to show that it's.
There also was an office there as well, so it was
3
automotive.
meters. It was an office, a 3-bedroom apartment, and the auto repair downstairs.
So I would just show all
I have
that.
videos of everything before we touch the building.
This, it kind of helps your case to show that you're not necessarily drastically increasing the nonconformity of not providing parking. So if you show what it was operating previously and what you're proposing, it'll show that maybe you're adding or the necessity for 1 or 2 more spaces, so it's not a huge increase.
Okay.
I did include a copy of the location of the
Yep.
municipal lots. So it does show you it doesn't highlight the project, but it does show the proximity of the municipal lots as well as the counts. And they're all 12-hour parking, the CVS being the closest, providing 38 spaces for 12 hours, which would satisfy all the proposed uses.
I thought the one on Spring and Wheeler was 24 hours.
It's 24 hours, I think, yeah. Yes, that is.
The way that it's listed on, I mean, this is a map that was provided by the Village of Warwick, and they all list them as 12-hour parking spaces.
The mayor said that to me too. It's 12-hour, but they consider 12-hour overnight. That's what he told me.
Right,
Okay.
All right.
Alright.
and you have 2 uses offsetting, you're not gonna, the
Yes.
office folks are not gonna be parking at the same time as the
Right.
residential folks.
Will the proposed renovated building require sprinklers?
Yeah.
Okay, so with the sprinkler system, you're gonna have to show where the water service connection size type
Yep.
is gonna be on the plans.
Yep.
I had a couple of plan comments, nothing really large. One key component was the roof leader discharge locations, just show that where they're gonna go. I'm sure most of the stuff, it looks like it's all just basically, there's no gutters, it just goes straight out onto,
Spill
It's all going
Yeah.
down the road, just like the rest of the street.
yeah. I should assume you're gonna have gutters now, so you're gonna have a downspout somewhere, just show them where they are. And then the vinyl fence, the detail calls it out to be white. I assume you're gonna want it a darker color of some sort to try to match.
Yeah, absolutely, not white. It would be the only thing that would stand out there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's pretty much it.
very straightforward. Thank you.
So, what I would suggest that the board do, in order not to, we can make a motion, to send them to the ZBA, hear me out. And if in the interim they get the determination that they don't need to, they have our motion, so they can do with it as they will, rather than waiting for them to go get that interpretation, come back next month, and they'll say, okay, now go to the ZBA. So we're saying, here's our permission to go to the ZBA. If you need it, great. If you don't need it, we'll see on your next submission.
For what questions would we want them to go to the,
Floor area ratio.
just the floor area ratio?
Correct.
Unless the building inspector makes the interpretation,
The-
I just have to write it, sorry.
Yeah, and Chris is gonna request an interpretation. They may also, the applicant may also decide, you know what, we're gonna restructure the building slightly. I'm, you know, shooting from the hip here because we wanna save a trip to the ZBA, and then likewise, they would not go to the ZBA. But this way, we're not waiting for them to get that answer, waiting a month, making the resolution next month. You could theoretically have that information in place and make your
Yeah,
submission.
and that is definitely appreciated. if we
In the
can do that.
meantime, do they need a public hearing also, or no?
I don't think we could do anything to help this.
They do need a public hearing.
Oh.
No,
It's a
yeah.
conditional use, I'm sorry, I can't, that part I can't change.
So,
I
can
don't
we
care.
add that in our recommendation and already have the date for the public hearing as a
I
dual
don't think we
planning?
can do that, can we?
Because isn't it, it's pending, if they're changing their
You
zoning,
can.
they might not need to do the
You
zoning board.
can, they do need a public hearing, if they go to the ZBA, they will, need a public hearing. What I recommend, when's our submission date?
For the next, they'll never have it, and, I mean,
But if they're leaning
Hold on.
towards your
me
proposal,
look
then
at
they don't
my-
have to go to the
Well,
zoning
the
board, then
problem
they
is
should be
I need
able
to
to.
know-
Question is,
Hold
did
on.
Boris make that decision for Bo's property? Yes or no? It's the same thing.
yeah.
That's what it comes
Oh, I
down
don't
to.
know, I don't know what their process was then. I was not the
It's
planning
the
board
same exact
secretary
roof.
then. I don't know.
We can answer
We
that
can-
question
yeah.
quickly.
Yeah.
That one I can get quickly. And you're saying you're challenging us to get the stuff in time?
Yeah.
You don't know us.
Because you need the 3 weeks,
Why?
is that what you mean? Because of the 3 weeks or the 4 weeks before a
Hold
meeting?
on, hold on. I have to tell them the right date.
Yes, ma'am. Something like December 14th
So-
or something?
What I'm getting at is,
Yeah.
I'm okay setting the public hearing, but we have to have the materials, so assuming that they get a favorable interpretation or modify their plans, so either or, they modify the plans with favorable interpretation. I'm okay setting a date for a public hearing, but I would make that resolution subject to receipt
Right.
of the revised plans or
Or the interpretation.
within that 3 weeks, because the public has to have it available to them. So if we don't have that in 3 weeks, and the 3 week notice gives us plenty of time to notice folks, so I'm not worried, you know, if we get that 3 weeks out, we then still have time to notice. I just don't wanna set a public hearing and then we don't have the plan is
The ZBA will also have a public hearing,
correct,
correct?
but there's nothing that
So-
prohibits you from having them simultaneous.
That means we have to have the
We're
ZBA
gonna-
people here.
No, when I say there's nothing,
Not the same.
there's nothing that prohibits you from having those tracks run concurrently.
Okay.
Concurrently.
So when you say fix the plan, Chris, what are we talking about? On that calculation?
The floor area ratio needs to be equal to or less to
Then that number.
than the current number. Because there's no definition in the code for floor area. We need
So deduct
Boris.
the walkable attic.
We need Boris to interpret it. So once we get an interpretation from Boris, if it works in our favor, I'm trying to clarify, so say if I'm wrong, we don't need to go before the ZBA.
Correct.
If Boris says, no, you do, the floor area ratio is increasing, we have to go before the ZBA. But we can do the ZBA and planning hearings at the same time.
Not literally at the same time, but
Simultaneously, let's say.
yes, you will still have two separate hearings.
Yes, yep.
The building inspector can send them directly to the ZBA.
Correct.
But we're hoping that that isn't the case.
Correct. Right.
You could also go to the ZBA and tell them Boris is wrong, but
Won't be the first time. I love Boris, but it won't be the first time.
So is it necessary for us to make a formal referral to the ZBA?
Well, I think
Is
it's
that just good
conditional
form?
upon Boris's
That's right.
interpretation,
It's
whether or
conditional.
not the ZBA is gonna be needed.
do you need to,
Understand.
technically on area variances, the applicant can go direct for purposes of the record. It's nice to say, hey, we've referred you out for this issue. They can go direct, but like I said, they have a couple of paths now that they have. I hate wasting time on a meeting, so I have no qualms. And like I said, if you wanna push a public hearing, you have two choices. You can set it tonight, subject to receipt of a determination 3 weeks out so that we have enough time to notice. Or we can wait till next month and set the public hearing next month. Those are your two choices.
In
I
the
vote
event,
to set the public hearing today.
in the event that we set it and there's some unforeseen complication, I hope not, then would it be complicated to then move it to the following?
Because it's subject to,
So-
we won't notice it until we have that answer.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So,
But we have to notice it, how many days in advance, right?
10,
10 days in
I have
advance.
plenty of time.
Well,
Do we? Is there?
Wait, Kristen has a deadline
We
for.
love you, Kristen.
I think
We
we
know
know
that
it's
you
gonna
can-
work out, guys.
Kristen
It's
has
gonna
a
work
deadline
Wait,
for
wait.
revised materials.
Wait, what's your deadline? How much time do you need?
so you have to think about when you do the public hearing, I have to get all the addresses together
I'll help
for
you.
you.
You can do that in
This
advance.
is
'cause they'll
detective
still
here. She'll
need
get
it.
everybody within
They'll
400
still need
feet.
it.
They'll need
Yeah.
it one way or the other.
All
Can't we
right.
just, oh no. we just-
11/19,
Just gonna knock
if
on
you're
all the
setting it
doors.
for December 10th, which is my daughter's birthday, 11/19.
And today's
The
the 12th.
19th days.
Right.
is-
Well,
Right, so it's next Tuesday.
7 days.
so it's a week out.
You have a week.
So is that,
And
is
then
that,
I have to get you all the addresses.
Yeah.
So what do we, wait, tell me again, what we have to have by the 19th?
You have to have an answer from Boris.
Boris's interpretation.
And he's not
And-
on vacation that you know of, correct?
Don't worry, I got a cell number. I'll get hold of him.
No.
Do you wanna step
Okay,
outside?
just,
So you have to get an answer from Boris as to how he interprets the floor area. And if it does not go your way, a resolution as to how you're going to solve that, either by going to the zoning board of appeals or modifying your plans to get rid of it. So those are your two paths once.
okay.
So if Boris says yes, great. If Boris says no, modify plans or ZBA.
And then at the same time, by the 19th, we need to submit the responses to all the comments, correct?
Right. But most of those are already,
Right,
Address.
yes.
And then you have to have the addresses for us by the
And
19th?
then what will what
Oh.
will happen is Liz will send me the public hearing notice. And then I should have all of those addresses to you within a day.
When will the ZBA have their public hearing?
Oh, I
month?
can do it.
You
A month, a
can.
month?
Sure.
if they go, do you set right upon receiving an application or do they call me? You set it for the first appearance, right? The ZBA sets their hearings for their first appearance, right?
Right.
I was just asking. I don't represent the ZBA.
No, I
So
know,
what-
I know.
What,
Well, I think
ZBA,
unfortunately, we just make the referral to the ZBA.
Exactly.
It's not something we're gonna handle as far as setting,
Right.
we can't,
we can't,
Yeah, you
dictate their
make this so-
schedule.
Right,
And then all of
exactly.
this
I
shuts
don't know
down
what
if
will
they have
happen.
to go to the ZBA,
Yeah.
like, you know,
You-
like
it
the,
doesn't
You've
shut down.
accommodated
They
the
do-
applicant about as much as you can accommodate the applicant timing wise, based if we vote the way we've just discussed.
I
So
make a
we-
motion the way she just discussed, said, giving both the applicant the ZBA track if needed and the
Yes.
parallel tracks as optioned as well. to expedite the process and to assist. Unless anybody else has any
Don't put the
questions.
word out.
Do I second it? No, I'm just kidding.
Can you,
Well, no, but it's, I mean, because literally,
Okay,
as
Brian,
it's explained
please,
to me,
can you
how it
repeat that?
actually-
You can-
Sure. As I understand it, it's giving them 2 tracks. At this point in time, they're taking it to Boris to see if the variance is needed, as well as also giving them the second thing to parallel both, have the public hearing here and the ZBA. We don't set the ZBA scheduling, it's all handled internally with them. We would be handling our own process and then opening hearing them, in which case they have to notify Kristen by the 19th to make sure the addresses are done as well within the allotted time frame. This allows both everybody and the applicants to proceed forward.
So-
Any other questions?
are we setting a public hearing? That what
Yes.
is that what you're
Yes.
saying?
I think
Okay,
we
that-
should do-
that's, bottom line is what's
Two
on
motions,
here.
please.
We should do two things.
Okay.
Brian, I think.
Go for it.
Do you want me to do
No,
it?
I think I got it. I think we should, I'm gonna move
You move, okay.
that we schedule a public hearing for December 10th, conditional on the submission of revised materials
And the building inspector's interpretation, right?
Yes,
Yes.
and the building inspector's interpretation
by the 19th.
by the 19th.
19th.
So that's
Yep, that's motion one.
motion
That's
one.
motion one. We can only vote one at a time.
Make it, yeah, so,
They
Is there a
they have a
second?
second to that motion?
I'll second.
You have a second? Anybody else have any comments? If not, I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Opposed? No. Okay, so that passed. Motion 2 is
Second one is a formal referral to the
the
ZBA,
if
ZBA.
necessary,
if
If
necessary,
necessary.
to,
for floor, for
to
floor
get a
area
determination
ratio.
on the floor area ratio.
Mm-hmm.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Anybody comment on it?
Who made the first?
I
Scott.
did.
Scott,
Scott,
Thank you.
Sorry,
all in
Brian.
favor?
Just lump them together.
Aye.
Opposed? Confused?
Nay. I'm for it.
Second that. Yes.
I'll fix that.
Chris is going to call me and make an appointment with Boris, right? And you're going to show him the plans
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
and go over the floor area ratio. So we'll talk about that appointment tomorrow
Yes.
and you'll
Yep.
come this week. Great.
Great project.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
amazing project.
You'll have the
Yes, don't worry.
Okay, good, thank you so much
Good.
for coming.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
thank
We so need nice apartment space.
Yes.
Are we voting to adjourn the meeting?
Well,
I had no
I'll make a
idea
motion
that
to
there was an
adjourn.
apartment even up there.
Oh, it's-
Or
it was-
like,
it
access
was
to there.
Start.
He used to rent it for $400 because he didn't want nobody to rob the store. That's how mental my building was. He had it for 25 years, he had it for $400
You're
a
on
month.
camera, right? You know that.
And he paid the electric.
Are we adjourning this meeting?
Move to adjourn.
They're still married, it's all good.
Brian Barber made the first motion to
Already
adjourn.
Oh, didn't see second.
Wow.
anybody have any discussion about anything? No, I call, should we adjourn? Yes.
Yes.
I think so. Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Have a good evening.
Oh, yeah.
Elizabeth, question.
In December.
Just where I got-
No,